Hey guys, welcome to Zack Attack Reviews. Thank you for joining me for my Throwback Thursday review of Juice. The way movies get picked for Throwback Thursday is my subscribers vote on a poll of what movie they want to see out of a selection of movies that I do, and I'm doing Black movies, so Black History Month and Juice for its selection, and it has some good competition, won by a substantial margin. I've never seen any of these movies that I've reviewed on Throwback Thursday, so I'm really excited for this first time watch. I watched the film, and it's going to be my thoughts. Let's start off with the good. So first of all, I fell in love with this film in the first 25 minutes of it because it put me on a real nostalgia trip. Threw me right back in the 90s. I was born in the 90s. I'm a 90s baby. So a lot of the slang, the way the film was shot and how the city looked, the baggy clothes, the graffiti, all that stuff just put me on a trip, and I was loving being transported back to a time of my adolescence. But nothing lifted my nostalgia more than the music, the soundtrack of this film. 90s East Coast hip hop with some smooth 90s R&B, produced by Hank Shocklee and the Bomb Squad. They did a great job picking some really, really great sounding tracks to really transport you to some of the feeling of the top artists of the time and the music that these people would actually be listening to. It made everything feel super authentic, and also the words of the songs really expressed what was going on in each scene that it was played in. And I really, really enjoyed when music and the film combined to like tell a story at the same time. I thought the soundtrack was phenomenal. Once we start getting to the meat of the story, when we get to start seeing the chemistry between the main characters, GQ or Q, Bishop, Steele, and Raheem, I really enjoyed their chemistry and the banter amongst them. It really reminded me of the people I grew up with or grew around in my neighborhood, the guys that were a little older than me at the time, and how they had such different personalities, but they had such great chemistry, and they all played a different role within the group. The way they use Italian mobster films to define masculinity. So much of that in the Black community in that time, especially during the 90s, with all these great mobster movies, films, and shows on TV, and that toxic nature of you got to be the man, you got to hunger for more, and not care about who you're taking down with you, whether it's friend, foe, or children. And some of the fun parts is skipping school because, at that time, inner city schools didn't get a lot of funding. You don't see a lot of people graduating school and making it out. And then the people who do make it out, they're like considered squares because they look down on you or they seem not as cool. So you don't want to grow up to be that person because they're the one looking down at you, and you're like, I'm not going to betray my hood like that. So the movie didn't put that in there, but I could feel what they were doing with that kind of stuff. Them going to the arcades was really fun because that was a big thing back in the 90s, and them just continuously scheming to get the next lick, to find a way to get money, to just, try to impress girls or just to get the flyest clothes or whatever thing that they wanted to do. I really enjoyed how they made that feel very authentic and realistic, and they didn't do anything heavy-handed with it. They just showed you how these kids were living lives at that time. Omar Epps, he plays GQ, and he does a great job as this character. He plays a character as an intelligent, smart, passionate guy that's want to use his passion for DJing to better his life. He'd rather do this than hang around all the time. He even says that, like, me going to these competitions is better than me just following around in the streets with you guys. And he really was trying to push himself forward. You can see the dedication throughout the movie because he's basically the main character, and you see how they push forward, and every night he's DJing and practicing for this big competition where everybody is going to be at, all the big eyes, where he can get a shot to get a contract. What I liked about his character is that I knew guys like that, guys that, dealt with the crime, dealt with the hood stuff and everything, but you always tell that they were a little smarter than doing that, and they found a way to get out before that life took them away, or they ended up in jail. And he's definitely felt like a character like that was, trying to find a better way, but still wanted to be cool with his friends that he grew up with since second grade. And then his part of the story really celebrated DJing and DJ battling, how it was, and all the mixes and the scratches and how everything was done back then, and it was really you on the keyboard and doing that stuff. I thought all that was really dope, especially the actual DJ battle that he had when it was time for him to do it that Saturday night before the robbery. Jermaine Hawkins was great comedy relief as Steele, and Killer Kane was really great as Raheem, the flawed leader who, you also could see that he was a little smarter. He probably could have done something better, but he had like some honor to him. He wanted to respect the brotherhood. He respected everybody within his group. He wanted to keep them safe and on the right path. And yes, they did petty crime, but he wanted to do the petty crime the right way, not kill anybody, not really hurt anybody that was too vulnerable. I really enjoyed seeing that because it was always those hood dudes in in my hood when I was growing up that you could tell was doing bad things, but they didn't want to just do it in a malicious intent. He was just doing it to survive and wanted to do it the cleanest way possible. But the standout of this movie, the star of the show, is Tupac Shakur. And it's not because he's Tupac, because he's phenomenal in this film as Bishop. He plays this kid that is money hungry, power hungry, suicidal, probably depressed, and has probably been bullied and picked on for so long. He has a speech about how he's always running from everyone and he feels trapped in and he feels caged. And this is him lashing out. And I thought that the way Pac expressed his feelings and all the emotions, every speech was just so convincing. He did a great job with this character. I was really surprised. This is my first time seeing him in a movie role. I didn't really get to see these movies. Obviously, it's my first time watching. When I was younger, I heard that he acted, but I always knew him from his music as Tupac, the rapper. And I thought, a lot of rappers go into movies, but they're never really really great. It's like a handful that are actually pretty good, like Queen Latifah and LL Cool J, obviously Will Smith, but Tupac actually had a bright career ahead of him if he could have kept on this path. This made me even more pissed that he passed away young, because not only was he a phenomenal rapper, one of the greatest of all time, he could have been one of the best black actors on the planet. He did such a good job at a young age playing this really flawed, angry character with no guidance and was just spiraling. And you could see it from his outbursts when he was getting bullied by the Latin gang to when he got into a fight with Q inside of Steele's house, and what he was saying and how he thought he was a man when they're all just kids. You could see that tension building within the script and how they wrote it between him and Omar, and with Raheem trying to mend things. He's trying to hey, we're brothers. We're like real, even though we're not about blood, we're brothers. Let's keep this together. And I really saw from the beginning, okay, I already know where this is going, but I want to see how they execute it. And I thought that his descent into madness was executed really well, and Tupac was a big reason for that. And it came all to fruition in that third act. I think that when we start getting the buildup of Q seeing okay, I might have to kill him because he's out of control and I'm not going to be able to have the freedom to live my life. And you can see him starting to go down that path and choose different, but Bishop is already down that path. There's no going back. He knows he's crazy and he doesn't care. And the speech that he gave to Q in the school, and then what he did, Samuel L. Jackson has a small role in this movie, and what he says to him as a character, and you can see him spinning the wheels and playing puppet master and how psychopathic everything he's doing is. But the part that really got me, and this is part Pac's body language as Bishop and also the directing and the lighting, the cinematography, is when Q tells him to meet him at a train track section where there's a diner, and you see Q standing there and you're wondering, okay, what's going to happen? They build the tension really well, and the way Bishop steps out of the shadows, watches him, fumbles with the gun a little bit, and slowly walks up was absolutely brilliant. You can just see that he's fully that villain. He's fully that guy. And this is what he's wanted for so long, because that tension between him and Q has been building for so long. And then that chase between them with him shooting, I was like, first of all, does he have unlimited bullets like Call of Duty? And also him just aiming so well in the movie as well. I was like, damn, he must have been practicing. He got some really good aim. He was almost hitting him every single time. But when they went to the elevator, and I've seen this part memed a bunch.
What you gonna do? Shoot me in the elevator?
But it was one of the most intense, iconic, crazy scenes I've seen in a movie in so long. I see why it's been memed and talked about for years and years and years, because it was just so crazy. He's like, "Are you gonna shoot me in the elevator?" And he just pulls up the gun, and I'm like, oh, he's really off the deep end. He does not care anymore. And it's one thing for somebody to say, I don't care, with their words, but to do it with your actions, It was brilliant. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Ernest Dickerson. He co-wrote the film. I think he did a pretty good script, and he really did a great job directing the film. Him using the vertical nature of New York and how even during the chase scenes they're going up, or he's shooting from an upward motion, and just showing like it just gave the feeling of intensity and height, and it just felt a little different from what you would see in a lot of crime films, and how he uses shadows and lighting and how he positions the camera to get really intimate and make sure if everything felt authentic with the characters. I think he was part of the reason why this film is so great, because of the directing that he did. Now let's talk about the bad. I don't have much bad to say about this movie, but I have to say in the second act of this film, the editing gets really choppy, and it's really weird because for the most part, the editing is good for the first act, and then the editing is pretty good in the third act. But when we get into the second act and things start slowing down, this movie is like an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 32 minutes, so it's not that long. And it feels like scenes were cut out. And I don't know if it was either because of the actors didn't have good execution of lines, or they said that they had to cut the movie down because they didn't want it too long, because obviously at the time this movie would be considered a risk in the 90s. But it just got really choppy. Certain conversations it felt like stuff was missing, so it took me out of the film when I was so absorbed in it at first. So I would say that was just a really weird thing. I wish they would have just filmed those scenes over or kept everything in it, because it really just threw off the film for me. Let's get into my verdict. So I feel like this movie is timeless. This is timeless, not because, of the music and the clothes and everything like that. Obviously, those are the things from the 90s. And some of that stuff is still happening. You still people dress like that and listen to those music. A lot of that music is still played on the radio or at parties this day. But the themes and the topics and the characters, these are all things that are still happening to today. So you can watch this movie and see someone in present day, especially you live in that type of environment or used to live in that type of environment like me, that you're like, wow, I know people like this. Like they're my neighbor. They're like right down the street. And it's just it's a time capsule for the era, and it celebrates the era, but also talk about the faults of it as well. But it also still speaks to the things that's going on today. The way there's no opportunities, and how poverty brings down on the Black community in certain areas, and the things they have to do to survive, and that mentality that they have. So I think that this movie was phenomenal. I really surprised, because people talk about Juice, but people really talk about like that elevator scene, which I get it. It's iconic, but the whole movie was just done really well, and I really loved this experience. So thank you guys for voting for this as my Throwback Thursday film, and I'm gonna give it a B+. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate Juice? Did you see the film before, and do you feel the same way how great it is, or you think like, it's not that special? There's other crime drama films featuring Black youth that are better. We have Paid in Full and a whole bunch of other films that I can't just think off the top of my head right now. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about that, how you feel about my review as well. And like the video if you like my review. Subscribe to my channel so you can also be a part of the community. Vote on the Throwback Thursday films that I do. And also I do reviews of current movies, trailer reactions, ranking lists, and have live discussions weekly or bi-weekly. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified of all those videos, and you can watch more of my content right now.